Hi, everyone. Emergency podcast edition for Izzo's Den as we are T-minus 8 days out from the North Dakota State football opener, and QP2 is QB1.
Oh, look at you with the
that?
alliteration and the initials. I'm stealing that for my column today, by the way. I will. I'm shameless. That's a good line.
Quincy Patterson.
And by the way, you need like a woo, like a siren sound or something. Work in some sound effects here.
Can I use your booming voice guy that you did last month when we were doing this? Because that was such good audio. Can we bring that back?
Absolutely. Sure can.
So Quincy Patterson has been named the starting quarterback for the Bison opener against Albany, announced by Matt Entz earlier today. It's not breaking news. It's not even surprising news, but it is news, Michaels, that we have a quarterback.
Was it announced by Matt Entz, or was it announced on Twitter?
It was announced on Twitter.
On a video, on a sponsored video.
Yeah, which... we can debate that to the cows come home, how that's going. Myself in television can lament how that's going, and you can even do that too in newspaper. But again, the question, Quincy Patterson, the guy, not surprising.
I don't think it's surprising, but if you believe what assistant coach Randy Hedberg told Jeff Kolpak earlier today after the announcement was made, the competition, according to Randy, was much closer than most of us thought it really was. I think that you and I are together in our belief that if you brought in Quincy from Virginia Tech and you brought him in last December and you had him for all of the spring season, and he couldn't play because he wasn't eligible because he played some games in the fall. And if you have him all summer, and if you have him all fall, and has experience at the FBS level, and he is 6'9" and 340 pounds and can run like a gazelle, I think our consensus was that he was going to be the starting quarterback unless he was just so bad in fall camp that he couldn't be the starting quarterback. And so all of that being said, I'm not surprised. If what Hedberg says is true, it's much closer than maybe we thought it was going to be.
Hedberg told Kolpak the last week and a half he's picked up a pace and he sees things better. He has a great arm. We're working on some lower body stuff. It's still a work in progress. Quincy told me on media day about his arm and accuracy and all that.
Because that was the question.
That's the whole thing.
That was the question with him.
The whole thing since he signed in January. Mm-hmm. He said, I just haven't thrown a whole lot. People just haven't seen me throw the football a whole lot. That was not asked of me at Virginia Tech or in high school. That's just not been my MO. And he says, I can throw. I've got an arm. I believe with more work, it will be very, very good. That's what he told me when I asked him on media day.
And everybody I've talked with, from coaches as you have, and from other people around the program, and from just other people who know, he has a cannon.
Yeah.
And we've seen it at the very limited sliver of practice that we can go to. I've been out to about a half dozen practices. We can only watch the last 20 minutes, and that's when they get into the 11-on-11, 7-on-7, that type of stuff. He has an absolute rocket. I mean, there's no question he's going to be able to get the ball downfield. The very little we saw, though, there were times when he was throwing, as I said the other day on your TV show, he was throwing Nolan Ryan fastballs circa 1969 with the New York Mets, when he was throwing 110 miles an hour
every which way,
8 feet outside. And I did see a few of those from Quincy in practice. And to my very amateur eye, again, going back to what Randy Hedberg told Kolpak, there did seem to be times when the footwork was sort of, even to my eye, was going, oh, that's kind of, I mean, he was kind of off balance, kind of, not set, that type of stuff. I don't know what I'm looking at other than what I thought I saw.
Yeah.
And so we'll see where that goes. But there's no doubt about the talent. It's whether he can get the ball on target and whether he can read things and see things and make the throws he needs to make.
The biggest decision in my mind why it went to Patterson is his ability to move,
because he's 6'9" and 340 pounds,
which was the glaring thing we saw. I remember we were here doing a pregame show leading into the South Dakota State game in the spring, and just Cam Miller's ability to get out of the pocket. We exulted about that because it wasn't available.
Just to avoid pressure, even.
It wasn't available with Zach Noland.
erase the thought of running for 15 yards.
Which he did. Yeah.
But just the ability to just move your feet and escape pressure and buy time. That was huge with Cam. And then, of course, he could add in, they ran some quarterback runs with them, and he added that element to the Bison offense, which made it better. But when push came to shove in the Sam Houston game in the quarterfinals and the playoffs, then his rawness and his youth showed through, and he just couldn't make throws when he needed to make them. Cam Miller, again, I will say this for the millionth time, he got put into an impossible situation. NDSU coaches thought that Zeb Nolan was going to be good enough to get them through the spring as a bridge quarterback, and they were going to be competitive with him so that they could get to the fall and figure out the quarterback situation, because they were surprised when Trey Lance left. That totally caught the Bison off guard. They thought they had Lance for 3 or 4 years. Miller got thrown into just the absolute boiling water, and he did, for the first 2 games, he did just fine against South Dakota State and against Eastern Washington. He just got in a little bit over his head against Sam Houston State. And after the game, as we've talked about, when he said, it's my fault.
It's all on me.
It was not all on Cam Miller. There was, he could have played better, and that would have helped, and they might have won the game if he had, but there's a lot of stuff going on.
What we have seen in practice is Patterson's running ability. He ran at us a couple times for touchdowns, and I remember looking at you like, do you want to get in front of that? Would a defensive back want to get in front of that? And that element was not available to the Bison in the spring, and that, I have to think, is a major reason why he's going to be the guy. Yeah,
it was embarrassing when we both soiled our pants as he was running at us. We thought, no!
Come on, man!
It's But you're right, Dom. I don't know if that's the reason why they chose him as the starting quarterback. I think they want more out of their quarterback than just that.
running.
But certainly, I mean, folks, if you're a Bison fan and have not seen Quincy Patterson in action or up close, he is a large young man. Yep. I mean, he is huge, and he is built. And so, if nothing else, if the Bison coaches tell Quincy, look, if you don't see anything, if you get confused, just run, just go. Mm-hmm. Just don't hesitate, just go. And that'll be an improvement over what we saw in the spring. One of the things we need to keep in mind, and I don't know if you said this to me or somebody else, I think it was you, is that we, as people who cover the Bison and fans, need to realize that Trey Lance, Easton Stick as a junior and senior, and Carson Wentz as a junior and senior were special quarterbacks. And so you're not going to get the same type of quality passing that you got from those guys. Easton Stick as a freshman and sophomore.
I was going to say Easton Stick 2016. You'll get that season.
I mean, that, where you...
Brock Jensen 2011.
Yep.
Look at that season.
You're going to get those type of games, maybe from Quincy, where you go, remember Easton Stick against South Dakota State down in Brookings? That wasn't good. That was a fumble. That was a couple interceptions.
3 interceptions.
That was not good at all.
Easton Stick 2016 against James Madison in the national semifinal.
It was hard for NDSU to pass against James Madison. Yep. And so you might get some of those games. The difference being now, as we've said, Quincy can run.
Yep.
And he is big. And so there's going to be something. What Bison coaches told me when I tried to press him at media day about, okay, come on. Somebody's got to be favored here to be the starting quarterback. They wouldn't bite. They wouldn't budge. Even, a million miles off the record, they'd say, I'm not touching that. But what they would say is Quincy, if he's the starter, can give us things in the run game that the other quarterbacks can't. And that's what they said.
What do you think? The West Coast offense commands 60 to 65% completion percentage to be ultimately effective. If Patterson's at blank percentage, the Bison are going to be A-okay.
Oh, if he's at 60%.
Yeah, that was the number
they'll be fine. Oh, God, yes.
Because you look at every other spot of the offense, they are ready to go.
But the thing you have to keep in mind is, and it's not this simple, but you can call some plays to have a quarterback complete passes. And that
simple rollout in the flat.
Throw a wide receiver screen to Christian Watson, and a 15-yard lateral pass becomes a 55-yard gain. And Tyler Roll told me that the Bison need to do more of that. And part of it last spring, again, frankly, was that they had a quarterback in Zeb Noland who couldn't get anybody the ball.
No.
They couldn't even run simple pass plays. And there was time and time again where you and I were in the press box going, God, if he just puts that ball a yard ahead of Dom Ganella instead of 2 yards behind him on a simple swing pass out of the backfield, Ganella goes for 25 instead of 8. But when you have to stop, turn around, catch the ball, spin, and then the timing of the play is all messed up, you're going to get 8 yards. But there's numerous times last year we went, just put it on the money.
Yeah.
And it's a big gain. And Zeb Noland just couldn't do that. If Patterson can do that this fall, that's a whole different ball game than for the Bison offense.
How different is this, and you've written about this plenty, that now we're entering a new age of quarterbacks at this school, that this is a guy who came here specifically off the reputation of a Carson Wentz, Easton Stick, and Trey Lance.
The quote Quincy gave me when I talked to him after he transferred was, why wouldn't you want to go there if you're a quarterback?
So is this open up a new door on that front, or is this a one-time deal? The Bison are trying to bridge the gap because, like you said, if you gave the Hedberg truth serum, he would tell you we would want Trey Lance probably through this year. They thought we can get him through his junior year.
Yes. Yep.
Then the door, we could transfer that to Cole Payton as a redshirt freshman in 2022, and he's ready to take the reins. And obviously that didn't happen.
Right.
Is this more a one-off we're seeing with Patterson, or is this a trend?
He's going to play for a year?
No, I'm saying more QB transfers coming here.
Oh, no, I don't think NDSU wants that unless they have to do that, right? I mean, Cole Payton is the guy.
He looks the part, man.
NDSU believes that Payton is going to be their guy into the future. Now, remember that Quincy has 3 years of eligibility left, and so we'll see how that all turns out. But no, I don't think they want to go the transfer route. I mean, I don't think anybody wants to go the transfer route, even though it's a new age of college football. You prefer to develop a guy in your program and go from there.
So how about the two heavyweights in not only the Missouri Valley Football Conference, in the FCS, are going to transfer quarterbacks for this football season? South Dakota State and North Dakota State are both at the transfer route.
And both out of necessity. I don't think it wasn't because of recruiting. It wasn't because they missed. I mean, NDSU, as we've said, again, even right now, it's because they got caught off guard by Trey.
Their guy's going to be starting in the NFL in a couple weeks.
And SDSU did a great job of recruiting Gronowski, who was recruited by nobody else. Nobody else gave him a Division I offer, and he was going to be the leading candidate to be the Valley Player of the Year going into this fall season as a super true freshman, whatever you want to call it. But that was because of injury. He unfortunately has apparently a serious knee injury.
Pretty serious injury there.
That he suffered in the national championship game. And so, I mean, SDSU had to go this route. You can't blame either of these programs for doing that.
It's just fascinating to see how they are stacked. Both teams are every other spot. But they have a huge question mark at quarterback that'll determine their season.
But look around the Valley, though, Dom. I mean, look, the second team preseason All-Valley quarterback
ain't there anymore.
Stone Labanowitz left Southern Illinois because he was not named the starting quarterback, and the starting quarterback is Nick Baker, a kid who looked great against NDSU in one game. But if you're Nick Hill, what are you saying now? I mean, okay, so this guy's our starter, and he might be okay, but he really hadn't shown anything before the goofy spring season. And Southern Illinois had 7 quarterbacks.
7 QBs in, correct.
And they went with the guy who, again, not to knock the kid, he beat NDSU, he won a couple of games for him, but he wasn't their starter prior to. I mean, he was the backup starting last spring.
So who's the second best QB now in the Missouri Valley? If you look at it, Illinois State, we don't know what they have.
No, Bryce Jefferson, who hasn't shown us anything to this point.
Indiana State, we literally have not seen on the field since November of 2019.
Nope.
Mo State, they went through. Matt Struck transferred. He's out of there.
Yep.
The guy who started a majority of the games last spring.
Bobby Petrino, though, has brought in 34 transfers since the spring.
Since the spring. Schuster was the preseason number 1 QB in the league.
And he was solid for UND. He did what they asked him to do.
Will McElvain's entering his 3rd year starting at Northern Iowa. He started in 2019 as a freshman.
We know what he is. And part of the problem at Northern Iowa is they don't have a running game.
They don't have anybody to get the ball to, I think.
There's Aaron Bailey comes around once a decade, and he was fantastic for Northern Iowa, so you can't expect that.
Carson Camp is a again, a redshirt freshman at USD. So
the question for that poor kid is, can you play with one arm and one leg? Because I mean, the offensive line at South Dakota is just not good.
Western Illinois has another young quarterback there, and Youngstown State doesn't have any experience back for them. So literally, it might be our guy McElvain at Northern Iowa,
who's the second best quarterback. I mean,
as in terms of games played in the league,
experience, and I'd say even, I mean, certainly not potential, but
put Cam Miller there.
Yeah,
because Cam Miller's played more games in the Missouri Valley.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a strange year, and but it goes to show the value of the quarterback. And
no doubt.
And I had I had some James Madison people who I know a little bit and messaged with last spring saying, well, NDSU is learning what
what I was going to say. How the other half lives here.
What it's like to not have quarterback privilege is the way that one of them phrased it. Was NDSU now for 10 years has had quarterback privilege in FCS. And last spring, they're learning this is what it's like for everybody else in the division.
You've written this. I've said it for the last decade. Enjoy this. Soak it in. Don't take this for granted because everybody else get one star quarterback like Brock Jensen every 15, 20 years. The fact that Bison had 4 in a row is remarkable.
Well, and it is because after Brock Jensen, maybe I naively said, oh boy, can Carson Wentz play? Is he going to be good enough? And when I, bring that up, Tim Polisic would look at me and go, my God. I mean, he's just going, just wait. He goes, just wait. Just wait. You'll see. Just wait. And I said, well, okay. Yeah. Brock was pretty good. He's like, just wait. You'll see. I said, all right. And then it was when Wentz got hurt, then we're like, oh my God, can Easton Stick handle this? And he was not what he was as a junior and senior when he was the best player in FCS for both those years, but he was pretty good as a freshman and sophomore. Yep. I mean, we're nitpicking him for that 2016 season. The 2016 season when they lost to James Madison.
They beat Iowa.
In the semifinals. They beat Iowa that year, and Stick was the key to that game.
Yes.
And then after that, you go, oh boy, this Trey Lance, he's a young guy. Can he do it? And we saw him play it at the Target Field and went, oh my goodness gracious. And one of us geniuses said, I think he's a better passer already than Easton Stick ever was. And then 3 of the other morons went, shut up! Oh my God, no way! No way, McFeely! All right,
we're going to do revisionist history here. I can bring up who started the 2016 National Championship game.
They would have won if Easton Stick would have started.
That Jacksonville State team was bad, yes. Anybody would have. So, to that point then, when do Bison fans start losing it on Quincy Patterson in the Albany game? Is it on a 3rd and 7 when airmails a pass? They got to have some lead time here, right?
We don't know, with all due respect to Quincy, who by all accounts, again, is everybody I talked to out in Blacksburg, and I talked to a person in Chicago who knew him in high school, and every one of them said, if nothing else, he is a great young man.
Yep, I've gathered that a couple times I've talked to him.
He is such a solid guy.
Absolutely right on that one.
The beat writer from the paper that covered him, Virginia Tech, said, first of all, before I say anything else about the kid, I need to tell you, he is a great guy. I mean, the team had no problem with him leaving to find an opportunity. And the coach brought up who's the coach at Virginia Tech?
Shane Beamer.
Was.
Now he's the coach of South Carolina.
And came up and came up and said after Patterson left, he had a press conference saying, hey, you know what? It's okay. I mean, this kid, he's got to go do what he's got to do. We wish him luck. And how much of that is theater and how much of it is the truth, I don't know. But everything we've heard about the kid, he's a great guy.
I've interviewed him a couple times. He is outstanding.
Very nice guy.
And he handled the questions I asked him about his arm like, I've heard this before, but it wasn't... Yep. Didn't get upset about it. Took it in stride.
That being said, he has not been a starter long term.
Nope.
Can he hang on to the ball?
We don't know.
Can he, read defenses? Is he going to make throws? If he throws it 100 miles an hour, 8 feet outside, is he going to get intercepted by a safety? Can he convert? I mean, all of these things are things we don't know about Quincy.
I've seen his arms. If anybody rips the ball out of there, it has to be the Incredible Hulk. I mean, he's jacked.
Oh, yeah.
He's just huge.
Yes.
That's the part you bring out, hanging onto the ball. Again, another thing the Bison could not do in the spring was hang on to the football. It was way too much either on the ground or intercepted.
Can we wipe the spring off the table? It doesn't count.
Some of us were ready to do that. Others are not.
Correct. Yes.
Others are not really willing to do that.
Yeah, no, I know, but I don't know that what we saw last spring again, the turnovers
is real.
Is
like the Dallas dream season.
I don't know that it's going to carry over to the fall.
Yep.
And if it does, then I'm wrong,
Yep.
and then I'll go, oh, okay, well, the Bison cannot hang on to the ball,
Yep.
and they can't force turnovers, so that's going to be a problem.
Yep.
But if Quincy can protect the ball, he's going to throw interceptions. Every quarterback does. There's only one guy that hasn't. Like in the history of college football,
history of the sport,
there's only one guy that didn't throw an interception on so many attempts with so many touchdown passes, and he played here for 1 year as a freshman. So if Quincy throws, what's a good number? 20.
Okay, that was the next question to you.
20 touchdown passes against 8 interceptions.
I'd sign up for that.
Is that a good ratio?
I think the 8's probably too high for what NDSU wants. But yeah, to answer your question, yep, I'd sign up for that in a heartbeat. How many rushing touchdowns?
Right, and how many yards rushing?
I'd add another 10 touchdowns on the ground probably.
And so when he against Albany or against Valparaiso or against Towson or
against University
against
of North
UND,
Dakota.
when they call a quarterback read option and Quincy pulls it, tucks it, and goes 65 yards and outruns the secondary, that's when fans are going to go, if that happens, that's when fans are going to go, oh, that's what they have now at NDSU.
Yep. Going to be fascinating to see. We're 8 days out from the season opener.
It's
Bison
either that or when he lowers his shoulder
and runs over a guy.
And turns a cornerback into pink mist out in the field out there somewhere.
That poor corner at Youngstown State that would quit the game after Carson Wentz ran over him.
I think he had a serious concussion. That was bad when Wentz ran him over. That was Trey ran over a guy last year too.
Yes, a couple of them.
Yep.
So it'll be interesting to see. Bison open up against Albany, who have a quarterback of their own. I can't wait to talk about next week. Mr. Undercuffler is set to come, who is the runner-up.
What's your early line on that game? I mean, without really knowing much and without digging in, what do we think about that game?
Bison minus 10.
10 points?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Why do you hate the Bison?
You say more than that?
Mm-hmm.
Minus 14? 17?
17.
Woo! Because I think Albany's pretty good, I think. I don't know if they're going to be able to stop NDSU, but they can score. I think they'll be able to put some points up.
But it's a long, weird trip for them, and they're coming into but it is, though. I mean, their road trips are often bus trips.
That's very true. They do.
I mean,
they often do not fly.
This is a big deal. And one of the things I learned about last spring, which I maybe didn't appreciate in earlier years because NDSU just didn't lose games, was how big of a deal it is to play NDSU and to beat NDSU.
Oh God! Yeah.
I knew it, but I didn't know it. And when I saw the South Dakota State players on the field, 90 minutes after a spring game, still doing the pictures at midfield and doing the horns down, I went
with the marker.
I went, oh, okay, all right, okay. And Southern Illinois is still living off that game.
Sam Houston's celebration went on for quite a bit Sunday night when we were down there in Huntsville that night.
And all that's fine. I'm not, that's fine. That's college football. But I'd sort of forgotten about what a big, and so.
To your point, Bob Stitt's still living off of that 6 years ago when Montana beat NDSU. He's still living off of that.
But I was reminded of what a big deal it is to beat the team at the top. And so for Albany, my point is for Albany to come here on a plane trip, which is not usual for them, and they only played a handful of games last spring.
4. Yep, they played 4 before they quit.
And historically, they've been a barely 500 program. They had a good year in 2019, but that was 2 years ago.
Yep.
And they have a good quarterback, but I've seen other good teams come in here and just get destroyed. And,
save your prediction stuff for next week.
And I think that NDSU is going to be ready to go for that opener.
Thanks for popping on and doing this. Appreciate
Absolutely.
it.
Thanks
Mike
for having
McFeely joining us from the Forum of Fargo Moore. Had great coverage of everything Bison related. Bison Media Zone, Inforum.com. And leading up to NDSU in Albany, you'll see it 2:30 on WDAY next Saturday. Thanks, everybody, for listening.